They emptied her bag in front of everyone at airport security. Just routine procedure for a woman who'd triggered the metal detector. But when TSA Agent Martinez saw the folded military uniform inside, his hands began to shake. Because the patches on that uniform belonged to a unit that had been declared extinct for over a decade. Agent Martinez had seen thousands of military uniforms pass through security, but this one was different. The patches were faded, worn by years of combat, but the unit designation made his blood run cold. Task Force Phantom, a special operations unit that had been wiped out in Afghanistan 10 years ago. Every member declared KIA, no survivors. But the woman standing in front of him wasn't just carrying the uniform. The name tape read, Stevens R. And according to military records, Sergeant Rachel Stevens had died in an IED explosion outside Kandahar in 2014. So why was a dead soldier standing in Denver International Airport? From which city around the world are you watching today? If this story moves you, please subscribe to Rising Life Stories to help us share more stories of hidden heroes. Rachel Stevens stood in the TSA pre-check line at Denver International Airport, her carry-on bag slung over her shoulder, trying to look like any other business traveler catching the 6 a.m. flight to Chicago. At 34, she had perfected the art of blending in, conservative business attire, minimal makeup, and the kind of unremarkable appearance that security personnel overlooked every day. But today was different. Today, she was carrying something that could destroy the carefully constructed life she'd built over the past 10 years. Next, called TSA Agent Carlos Martinez, a 15-year veteran of airport security who prided himself on reading people. As Rachel approached his station, something about her demeanor immediately caught his attention. She was nervous, more nervous than the typical business traveler running late for a flight. Her eyes darted around the security checkpoint, her breathing was shallow, and she kept adjusting the strap of her bag as if it contained something precious or dangerous. "Good morning, ma'am," Martinez said, accepting her driver's license and boarding pass. "Traveling for business or pleasure?" "Business," Rachel replied, her voice steady, but Martinez detected a slight tremor. "Medical conference in Chicago." The license read, Rachel Stevens, age 34, address in Fort Collins, Colorado. Everything appeared legitimate, but Martinez's instincts were telling him otherwise. In his years of security work, he'd developed an almost supernatural ability to spot travelers who were hiding something. "Step through the metal detector, please," Martinez instructed. Rachel walked through the scanner, and immediately alarms began blaring. The machine had detected multiple metallic objects, which wasn't unusual for travelers carrying electronics, jewelry, or medical devices. But the pattern of detection suggested something more substantial. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside for additional screening," Martinez announced, his voice professional but firm. Rachel's face remained calm, but Martinez noticed her hands clench slightly. "Is there a problem?" "Just routine. Please place your bag on the inspection table." What Martinez didn't know was that Rachel Stevens had been dreading this moment for months. Inside her seemingly ordinary carry-on bag was a folded military dress uniform, the same uniform she had worn during 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan as a member of one of the military's most classified units. She'd kept the uniform for 10 years, hidden in various locations as she moved across the country, building new identities and trying to stay ahead of those who wanted her dead. But now, she was finally ready to come forward with the truth about what had really happened to Task Force Phantom. The uniform contained evidence that could expose a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of the Pentagon, evidence that powerful people had killed to keep secret. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to conduct a manual search of your bag," Agent Martinez announced, pulling on latex gloves. "This is standard procedure when the scanner detects multiple metallic objects." Rachel nodded silently, her heart pounding as Martinez began removing items from her carry-on. First came the obvious things: laptop, phone charger, toiletries in regulation-sized containers. Everything appeared normal for a business traveler. But Martinez noticed that Rachel's breathing became more labored as he reached deeper into the bag. His fingers encountered something wrapped in a plastic garment bag, folded with military precision and tucked into the bottom compartment. "What's this?" Martinez asked, beginning to unfold the plastic covering. "Just clothing," Rachel replied, but her voice had changed. Gone was the casual tone of a business traveler. Now, she sounded like someone preparing for battle. As Martinez pulled the garment from the bag, his experienced hands immediately recognized the weight and texture of military fabric. But when he unfolded it completely, his breath caught in his throat. It was a U.S. Army dress uniform, but not just any uniform. The blue fabric was faded in specific patterns that spoke of years of wear and harsh conditions. The brass buttons were tarnished, not from neglect, but from exposure to desert sand and mountain dust. But it was the patches and ribbons that made Martinez's hands begin to shake. On the left shoulder was a unit patch he recognized from classified briefings during his own military service years ago. A ghostly figure against a black background with the words Task Force Phantom beneath it. It was a patch that officially didn't exist, from a unit that had been erased from all records. The ribbon rack above the left breast pocket told a story of extraordinary service. Bronze Star with V device, Purple Heart with oak leaf cluster, Combat Infantryman badge, and others that Martinez couldn't immediately identify, but which clearly indicated someone who had seen significant combat. "Ma'am," Martinez said, his voice now carrying the respect of one veteran to another, "I need to ask you to step into the private screening room." Rachel looked around the busy security checkpoint. Other travelers were watching the interaction with mild curiosity, probably assuming it was just another routine bag search. None of them could imagine they were witnessing the emergence of a ghost. "Agent Martinez," Rachel said quietly, reading his name tag. "Before we go any further, you need to understand what you're dealing with. That uniform belongs to someone who died 10 years ago." Martinez studied her face more carefully. There was something in her eyes, a depth of experience and pain that he'd seen in combat veterans, but also something else. Fear. Not fear of being caught, but fear of what would happen once people learned she was alive. "Then who are you?" Martinez asked. Rachel took a deep breath. "I'm the person who's been carrying that uniform and the secrets it contains for 10 years, and I'm the reason that 6 very powerful people in Washington would prefer I stayed dead." In the private TSA screening room, away from curious eyes and ears, Agent Martinez laid the uniform on the inspection table with a reverence typically reserved for handling a flag at a military funeral. The name tape stitched above the right breast pocket read, "Stevens, R," in faded black letters. "Sergeant Rachel Stevens," Martinez read aloud, but according to Department of Defense records, Sergeant Stevens was killed in action in Afghanistan in 2014. Rachel sat in the metal chair across from him, her hands folded in her lap. That's what they wanted everyone to believe. Martinez had called his supervisor, Jane Williams, a former Air Force intelligence officer who now handled security matters requiring military expertise. She entered the room carrying a tablet with Rachel's official military record displayed. "According to this," Williams said, setting the tablet on the table, "Sergeant Rachel Stevens, 25, died when an IED destroyed her convoy outside Kandahar on March 15, 2014. She was posthumously awarded the Silver Star. There was a military funeral at Arlington National Cemetery." Rachel looked at the screen showing her own death certificate and memorial service photos. "There was a funeral, but they buried an empty casket." "That's impossible," Williams replied. "The Army doesn't fake deaths of its own soldiers." "They do when those soldiers know too much about operations that were never supposed to exist," Rachel said quietly. "Task Force Phantom was eliminated not by enemy action, but by our own government." Martinez examined the uniform more closely. The patches were authentic. He could tell by the stitching and wear patterns. The ribbons were real military decorations, not replicas. And the name tape had been sewn on by military tailors, not printed or glued. "Let me get this straight," Williams said. "You're claiming that the U.S. military faked your death and the deaths of your entire unit?" "Not the military," Rachel corrected. "Specific individuals within the Pentagon who were covering up war crimes. Task Force Phantom was eliminated because we discovered that certain defense contractors were deliberately providing faulty equipment to military units, causing casualties that could be blamed on enemy action." She reached into the uniform's breast pocket and withdrew a small USB drive. "This contains proof, communications, financial records, orders that were never supposed to be preserved. We were killed to keep us quiet." Martinez had been in military intelligence long enough to know that stranger things had happened. If what you're saying is true, why surface now? Why risk exposure after 10 years? Rachel's expression hardened. Because they're doing it again. New contracts, new faulty equipment, new soldiers dying unnecessarily. And because I just learned that the man responsible for ordering our elimination is about to be nominated as Secretary of Defense. The room fell silent except for the hum of airport ventilation. Williams looked at Martinez, both of them realizing they were dealing with something far beyond normal TSA procedures. "We need to contact federal authorities," Williams said. "No," Rachel replied firmly. "The people I'm trying to expose have contacts throughout federal law enforcement. That's how they've stayed hidden for 10 years. I was on my way to Chicago to meet with a journalist who specializes in military investigations." Martinez studied the uniform again, noticing details he'd missed before. Burn marks on the sleeves, dark stains that could have been blood. This wasn't just a dress uniform. It was a combat uniform that had been through hell. "What do you need from us?" Martinez asked. Rachel looked at the two TSA officers who now held her secret. She had planned for this moment for months, but now that it was happening, the weight of 10 years in hiding felt overwhelming. "I need to get to Chicago," she said. "The journalist I'm meeting has been investigating defense contractor fraud for years. He has sources in Congress who can protect me once the story breaks." Williams checked her watch. "Your flight leaves in 30 minutes. Under normal circumstances, we'd have to detain you pending further investigation." "These aren't normal circumstances," Martinez interjected. He had made his decision. "Ma'am, what proof do we have that what you're telling us is true?" Rachel carefully removed another item from the uniform, a military ID card that had been hidden in a secret pocket. The photo showed a younger Rachel in military fatigues, but the name and service number matched the uniform. "This is my real ID. The Rachel Stevens who's been living in Fort Collins for the past 10 years doesn't officially exist. I've been using forged documents to stay hidden." Martinez examined the ID under the screening room's bright lights. It appeared authentic, with all the security features of a genuine military identification card. "There's something else," Rachel continued. She showed them a photograph tucked into the uniform, a group photo of 12 soldiers in combat gear, standing in front of a military vehicle in what appeared to be Afghanistan. "This is Task Force Phantom. All 12 of us were declared KIA on the same day, but only 11 actually died." She pointed to herself in the photo. "I survived because I wasn't with the convoy when it was hit. I was on a separate mission." Williams studied the photograph. "Why didn't you report to your chain of command after the attack?" "Because I realized it wasn't an attack. The convoy route had been leaked to insurgents. Someone wanted us dead, and when they thought they'd succeeded, I decided to stay dead until I could figure out who and why." Martinez made his decision. "Your flight is boarding now. We're going to classify this as a routine inspection with no irregularities found." "You're letting me go?" "We're letting a fellow veteran complete her mission," Williams said, carefully repacking the uniform. "But we're also going to make some calls to ensure you have backup when you land in Chicago." 20 minutes later, Rachel Stevens walked through Denver International Airport carrying the same bag that had been searched, but now she no longer felt like she was hiding. For the first time in 10 years, someone else knew her secret and had chosen to help rather than hinder her mission. Agent Martinez escorted her to the gate, ostensibly for security reasons, but actually to ensure she made her flight safely. As they walked, he shared his own military experience. "I served in Iraq, 2005 to 2007, he said. "Lost friends to equipment failures that shouldn't have happened. If what you're saying is true, some of those deaths might not have been accidental either." At the gate, Rachel turned to face him. "Agent Martinez, once this story breaks, there will be investigations. People will ask questions about how I got through security with classified materials. And we'll tell them the truth, that we conducted a thorough inspection and found nothing that violated TSA regulations," Martinez replied. "A veteran traveling with her dress uniform isn't suspicious." As Rachel boarded her flight to Chicago, she felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The evidence she carried could bring down powerful people, but it could also put her life in immediate danger once her existence became known. From her window seat, she could see Agent Martinez still standing at the gate, watching to ensure her departure. She realized that in the span of 1 hour, she had gone from a woman hiding in the shadows to someone with allies. 3 hours later, the plane touched down at O'Hare International Airport. Rachel Stevens, no longer officially dead, was about to step back into a world that thought it had buried her 10 years ago. As she walked through the terminal, she passed a newsstand displaying headlines about the upcoming confirmation hearings for the new Secretary of Defense nominee. Soon, those headlines would tell a very different story. The ghost of Task Force Phantom was finally ready to speak. 6 months later, the story broke across every major news network. Rachel Stevens' evidence led to the largest military corruption scandal in decades. 3 defense contractors were shut down, multiple Pentagon officials faced criminal charges, and the Secretary of Defense nomination was withdrawn. Agent Martinez was quietly commended for his role in facilitating a crucial national security investigation. The TSA implemented new protocols for handling veterans carrying military items with potential intelligence value. Rachel Stevens entered witness protection after testifying before Congress. Her courage in carrying the truth for 10 years had finally brought justice for her fallen teammates. At Rising Life Stories, we believe that heroes sometimes carry their burdens in silence for years before finding the right moment to step forward. Sometimes the most important journey begins with a simple question: what's in the bag? The truth, as Rachel Stevens proved, is worth carrying no matter how heavy it becomes. Where in the world are you watching today? If this story inspired you, please subscribe, because there are heroes among us carrying truths that the world needs to hear.